Hello, welcome to Learn with Pratap. So in today's video, we'll be creating a to-do app using Flutter. So this will be a very basic application. So here we can create a to-do. So we can say Learn with Pratap, and then we can mark the to-do as done. So when we click on this checkbox, then we can see this text decoration, and also we can swipe this to delete. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm on my VS Code. So before we start our VS Code, let's make sure we have Flutter installed in our machine. So for that, let's go to flutter.dev and let's go to get started. And then here we can go on these installation steps. So if you're on Windows, then you can follow these Windows steps. If you're on macOS, then you can follow the macOS. If you're in the Linux or on the Chrome OS. So since I am using macOS, so I'll be following with this macOS. So you can follow each of these steps to install Flutter in your device. So once your Flutter is installed in your device, then you can go to your VS Code. Then here you can go to View and Command Palette. So in order to open this Command Palette, you can either do Command Shift P or Control Shift P. And then here you can go to this Flutter, and then we can run this new project. And then let's create a empty application. And then I want to create this inside this personal. So let me select this folder, and I want this application to be Flutter to do, and let's press enter. Okay, so it will take a few seconds to have all the dependencies, and then you can see that Flutter has created us a few folders for us. We have this Android, iOS, we have this lib folder, we have this Linux, macOS, web, Windows, and so on, right? So we can run our application across different platforms. So let's go through them one by one. So what is pubspec.yaml? So this is something equivalent to our package.json in our JavaScript project. And then the folder here which we are interested in is this lib folder. Okay, so we'll be writing our Dart code here. And you can see we have this Android folder. So this will be for this Android project, for the Android project. We have the iOS folder. This will be for the iOS project. We have this macOS folder. This will be for the macOS application. This is web. This will be used for rendering our application in the website. And this is for the Windows application. Okay, so but now we are interested only in the Android and iOS. And before we run our application, make sure you have this simulator running. So for simplicity, and then let me add this simulator in my code so that we can code and check the code simultaneously. So let me make it a bit bigger. Okay, so here if we check our main.dart file, so we have this main. So this is where the Dart code will first run. So this is our main function, and then it will run our application. So for now, the name of our application is our main app, and then we have this main app. So here basically we don't have anything, but just it's a stateless widget, and everything in Flutter is a widget. And here we have this build, and here we have this material app. So we have this text hello world as a center. So let's run this application. So running this application is pretty simple. You can go to either run and debug, or you can go from here, or you can go from here. Okay, so you can run without debugging. So for this you can either use F5. So let me launch the application. So let's wait until this is running. So we can see our application is up and running now, and we have our text hello world which is centered in the body. Okay, so before we proceed, let's create new folders and few files here. So you can say, let's start with new folder. The first folder we want here is pages. So this is where we want to add our home page, and let's add another folder. So let's name it widget. So this is where we'll be placing our widget. Okay, and now inside these pages, let's create a new page called homepage. So it can be homepage.dart, and let's create a stateful widget here. So we can say stateful widget, and let's name it homepage. Okay, and now let's import this. Okay, so far we have created a homepage widget, which is basically a stateful widget, and currently we don't have anything. We just have a container here and nothing much. For now, let's remove this container and let's add a scaffold. Let's leave it as it is, and let's use this homepage in our main.dart. And also we don't want this debug which is currently visible here in this application, if you can see. So let me update that. So for that we can remove everything from here. So instead of having this scaffold as a home, I can pass a home page now. Cool. Okay, and here I can disable the debug mode banner. So let me say false, and also let me set a theme, comma, and then a theme. So I can say theme data, and then let me pass here primary switch. I want the color to be a blue color. Okay, and then since I'm using this, I need to remove this const now. Okay, so now we have this home page. So let's go to our scaffold here. Let's see if our home page is up and running. So for this, we can simply use a body, and then inside the body, we can have a container for now. Okay, and then inside this container, let's add a child. So this child, if you can see this child, it takes a widget. So let's pass a text widget. Okay, and then let's pass here, I am from homepage, and let me center this container. Okay, if I save, and you can see we have I am from homepage. Okay, so if you remember the previous screen, we had a tiles like a card. So let's first go and create those widget, right? So for that, let's go to our widget and let's create a new file. So we can say ToDo tile. And then this will be a stateless widget. So you can say stateless widget, and then let's name it ToDo tile. Okay, and then let's import our dot. Okay, so now we have ToDo tile. So this tile will be responsible for having a checkbox and then a label. So let's start by adding all those. So let's start by having this as a container. So we have this container, and then let's add a child here. So the child will be basically a row, and then the row will have multiple children. So let's add a children. So here let's start by having a checkbox. Okay, so here the checkbox will have a value. So for now, let's hard code it. Let's say true, and let's create this function. Okay, so we have this checkbox, and also we need to have a text. So this checkbox will be responsible for the marking the task as done or undone, and then we'll have a text which will basically the label of the task name. Okay, so for now, let's hard code it. Let's say make tutorial. Okay, so now we have a ToDo tile widget, and let's save it and let's use it in our home page. Here we can simply use the ToDo tile. Let me center this. So you can see we have a tile, right? So first of all, let's style this up. So styling the widget, it's pretty simple. So let's start by styling the container. So we can have a padding, and then let's have an inset of all the sides, and let's have it at 24. Okay, and after that, let's have a decoration. I want to have a background here, so it will be a box decoration, and let me pass a color here. So the color will be basically the blue color, and also let me have a radius, border radius dot circular, and then let's add it a 12. Okay, so let me format it, let me save. So now we have one tile, right? And also let's fix this. We need to add a const. Okay, and also let's add a padding on this particular tile. So let's wrap this container with a padding, and let's have a padding of not all, like let's have only for the top left and right. You can say left 25, top 25, and right 25. Okay, so this look pretty cool. Okay, so let's go back to our home page and let's add a background here. So let's have a background. Let's style the home page. So you can say background color will be of blue color, colors dot blue, and let's have a shade of 200. And also let's have an app bar here. So app bar is basically a app bar, and inside this app bar we need to pass a title, and let's have a title. So it will be of widget text. So I can say text, and then let's have a title of Flutter ToDo. Okay, let me save, and you can see we have this elevation here. I don't want that elevation, it's not cool, so I can remove the elevation. So I can say 0, and let me save. Cool. So with this, we have our basic application here. But now, if you can see, we don't have any functionality here. Before that, we want our ToDo tile to be a multiple, right? So for that, we can use a list view. So let me remove this and let me add a list view. And this will have a children, multiple children. So now here I can pass the ToDo tile instead of having these children like center here. So let me copy this. Let me remove this. Let me add a multiple ToDo tile, right? Okay, and let me wrap this inside the center. Okay, so you can see we have a beautiful tiles. So we have multiple tiles now. So instead of hard coding all these multiple times, let's have a value here. So let's have a ToDos. So you can say list. We have ToDos. So this will be basically an array. So this list will have multiple ToDos. So the first will be the task name. So basically this will be a make tutorial, and by default it will be false, it's not completed yet. So let's add another to do, and here let me say record video. Okay, and now I can use these to dos to basically render here instead of hard coding this to do tile multiple times, right? So for that, let me remove this, and then we can use list view dot builder, and then here it will take this item builder. So this will be basically a context, and then it will give me the index. Okay, and here I can return the to do tile. Okay, so let me reformat it. So since I don't pass the count, so I need to pass the count in this builder. So it should be basically items count, and then the item count will be basically the to dos dot length. And if I save, I should have only multiple, right? Let me add one more, publish video, right? Like even though I'm having a dynamic to dos here, but still I'm getting this make tutorial multiple times, right? So let me hard refresh. Okay, so we want this to do tile to be a dynamic. So I want to pass this task name and the completed variable into this to do tile, right? So for that, let's go to our to do tile and let's make it a bit more dynamic here, right? So let's create few fields here. So one will be basically final. So let's have a task name, and then let's have a final bool task completed. And also let's have a function of boolean, which will be optional, and we'll have a unchanged. Okay, so with this I can remove this unchanged. Okay, so now we have these three fields. Basically these are the properties of this class. We have task name, we have task completed, which is boolean, and then we have this callback function unchanged, right? Since we already have a final here, we cannot have these to do tiles as a const. We need to remove this const. And also we need to have all these fields. So let's say required this dot task name, required this dot task completed, and also required this dot unchanged. Cool. So with this I have accepted all these parameters, and now instead of hard coding all this, like instead of having a hard coding value of true, so now I can use the task completed here. Okay, and also here I can pass the task name. Okay, so now since we have updated our to do tile, we need to pass a valid data here, right? So here we have this index. So using this index we can grab the particular to do. So let's pass the task name. So it will be basically to dos of index. So when we say to dos of index, let's say if the index is 0, so for this we'll get this particular list, and then the task name is basically the first index, which will be basically the 0th index, right? And also let's pass task completed, which will be basically to dos of index of the second element. Okay, and also we need to pass the unchanged. So for now let me just say an empty, and let me reformat it, and let me close this. I really don't need that, and let me save. So now you can see we have our dynamic now. So when we have make tutorial, we have make tutorial. When we say record video, we have record video, right? So far our tutorial application looks good. So now let's have this functionality in this checkbox, because currently when I click on this checkbox, nothing happens, right? So for that, let's have a function here. So let's say void checkbox changed. So this is a function. It will basically accept two arguments. One will be a boolean value, and then we'll have a index. So this will be basically an integer. Okay, and here when we have this unchanged, let's make sure we pass the value. So let's say we have a value from here, and sorry, it should be value, and this will be an arrow function, and here we can say checkbox changed, and here we have this value, and then we have this index. Okay, so since this value is optional boolean, so I need to make sure my boolean is also an optional boolean. Okay, so now here what we want to do is, let's say I am marking this make tutorials as done. So when I click on this checkbox, this function will be called, and then I want to change this particular field from false to true, to the opposite, right? So in that case, since this is a stateful widget, I need to use set state here. Okay, and then here I can say to dos for the particular index, and this is the second element. So I can say for the index of 1, I want to set the opposite of the current value. If it is true, then it will be, I want to set it false. If it is false, then I want to set it true. So let me save. Now let's click on this make tutorial. Nice. Cool, right? But now the color of this checkbox is not very beautiful. I want to change it. Let's go to do tile and let's style the checkbox. Okay, so where do we have checkbox? So let's have the active color here and let's set it to colors.red. Nice. So let me check. Okay, so it is visible, right? So with this we have completed our to do tile. So now let's add the functionality so that we can add a new to do. So for that, I think the best way will be to have this floating action button here. So whenever we click the button here, we will create it, like we'll open a dialog, and then from the dialog we'll be creating the new to do. Okay, so let's have a floating action button. So this will be basically a floating action button. Okay, from this we'll basically have a on pressed. So for now let's set it to empty. Let's not handle it, and then we'll have another child. So here I want to add a icon. So let me have an icon, icons dot add. Let me format it and let me save. So now we have this floating action button, right? So whenever I press this, I want to open a dialog, right? So let me create a function here. I'll say void create new task. So this will not accept any argument. Let's go here, and now I can use this function here. Okay, so when we create a new task, I want to open a dialog. So let's say show dialog, and this will have a context. Let's pass the context, and then I want to create my own widget. Like for the particular dialog, I want to create my own widget. Okay, so let's go to my widget and let's create a dialog box. So you can say dialog box dot. So the dialog box will be a stateless widget. So I can say stateless widget, and let me name it a dialog box. Okay, and let me import the Flutter. Okay, so now I have this dialog box. So instead of returning this container from here, I want to return a alert dialog. So let me have a alert dialog, and then now I need to pass few things here. So first of all, let me pass a background. So it will be colors dot blue with a shade of 300. Okay, and also it need to have a content. So the content will be basically a container. We can set a height in the container. So let's set a height. It will be basically of 120, and then the container can have a child. So let's add the child. So basically here I want to have it as a column, and then in the column we will have a text field and a row. Okay, so let's go with the column first, and inside this column I can have a children. So the children will be basically, first will be the text field. So the text field is basically the text input, and then the second element will be basically a row where I can place a multiple buttons. Okay, so this row will have multiple childrens. So this is where I'll be adding the buttons. Okay, let me just save it and let me use it as it is. So let me go to my homepage dot. Instead of this builder, I can have a function. So I can say context, and I can return the dialog box. Okay, so let me save and let me click. Now we have a dialog box. So here we have this text field, and also we need to have a button which will be basically a save button and a cancel button, right? So since the button will be of same type, it's the best idea to create a widget as well, since we will be having this type of same functionality. So let's go to our widget and let's create a new file again, and this time let's add a button widget. So we can say my button dot. Okay, or it should be dot. And then this will be a stateless widget. So I can say stateless widget. Let's edit a my button, and let's import this. Okay, so here instead of this container, let's add a material button. Okay, and then this button will basically have an on pressed. Okay, and then we need to accept the on press here. So basically the button will have a functionality of on press event and then add text, right? So I think it's better to first add the text. I can say final string text, and also let me add a callback. So let me say void callback, and this will basically a on pressed. Cool, and then let's accept those. So I can say required this dot text, and also required this dot on pressed. So since I'm using the final here, I can remove this const, and then I have this on pressed, and also let me have a text here. So basically here I can have a child of text, particular text. Okay, and also let me have the color of the button. So I can say color, so I can say theme dot off, and it should be of context. Let's use the primary color. Cool. So with this we have our button functionality. So now I can reuse this button multiple times, right? So I can use for the save button as well as for the cancel button. So let's go back to my dialog box, and now in this button part, so let's have the button. So I can say my button, and in the text I can add, so let me say save. So I can say on save. So I can accept this from here. So I will do it shortly. First, let me add all the required things, and also let me add another button. So this time this will be cancel, and this will be on cancel. Cool. So for now, let's create a local variable for now. Okay, so I think it is because I have this on save and on cancel, like it's empty. I think it's better to have them like, let's accept that. So let's create a field here. Let's add a couple of fields. So we can say void callback on save, and also void callback on cancel, and here I can accept those. I can say required this dot on save, required this dot on cancel. Okay, so I can remove this const, and now if I go back to my homepage dot, I need to have the on save and on cancel here. So let me say empty, and let me have a on cancel, so this will be empty as well, and let me save. So seems like I've done a mistake here, not sure what mistake I've done. So for simplicity, let me add this cancel. So I can say if I click on this cancel, I can remove the dialog. Okay, so I think the problem was because I didn't hard reload it, because I did some changes in my application. So now we have this save button and a cancel button. But as you can see, we have this save button and cancel button, like it's sticky, it's joined. I want to separate them. So let me go back to this dialog box, and then here I can have a spacer. So instead of this, let me have a sized box, and let me have a width of 8, and let me add a const here. Let me save. Okay, and also let me have this row as a main axis alignment, and I can say, so instead of having this in the left side, I want to have this in the right side. So I can say main axis alignment, and this will be main axis alignment dot end. Cool. And also let me style this column. So I can say main axis alignment. So this will be, let me say space evenly. Let me save. Okay, this look pretty good. And now inside this text field, let me add a decoration. I want to have the text field a hint, and I want to also give a border. So let me add a input decoration. And here I can pass a border. So I can say outline input border, and also let me have the hint text. So this will be basically a placeholder. So I can say add a new task. Okay, so I think I need to add this const here, also const here. Okay, so with this, so let me reformat it. And now we have our border and hint text now, right? So we have this beautiful border, and then we have this add a new task. So when I press on cancel, so if you remember, if we go back to our home.dart, so when we click on this cancel, we are closing the pop-up, right? If I click on this cancel, so the pop-up will go. Okay, so now let's type something and let's click on save. So save is not handled yet. So now it's the best time to handle this save functionality, right? So let's create a new function and say void save task. Okay, and if you remember, like we have this dialog box, we have this text field, so we also need to have a controller here. So I think this is the best time to add a controller here. So let's have a controller and say final controller. So this controller will be used by the text field. So where is the text field? So here I need to pass the controller. It will be basically the controller. Okay, and then I need to add the controller here. I can say required this dot controller. So I need to pass the controller here. So let me say controller, I can say underscore controller. So now I need to create this value controller here. So let's create a controller here. So I can say final underscore controller is equal to text editing controller. Okay, so this is because I have this const, it should be dynamic. So let me have this quick fix. Okay, So the error was because of the const. So let me hot reload again. Let me go back to my home page. So now I have this controller. So what is this controller? This will be used to specifically grab the data from this text field. Like let's say whenever I type anything here, so when I save, so in order to grab this text, we can use this controller. Okay, so let's go to the save task. So we can say set state, and then we can say todos dot add, and let's add a list here, and it will be underscore controller dot text, and by default it will be false. Okay, and after this we need to clear the controller. I can say underscore controller dot clear, so this will clear the text field. And let me save. Let me hot reload first, and let me create a new to do. I can say test to do. Let me save. Seems like it doesn't add it. And also after adding this, I can close the pop-up. Navigator dot off context dot pop. Let me refresh. Let's say test. Okay, it doesn't call because I don't think I have called the save task here. Okay, so this was a pretty silly mistake. So I need to call this function. So I can say save task. Let's save. I need to hot reload maybe. So let me go here. So let me say save task. Nice. So it is now added, right? So let me add another. Test the app. Let me save. Cool. Also here, when I mark this to do as done, I want this text to be like strike through. I want to decorate this text as a strike through, right? If it is checked. So let's go back to our to do tile, and we can add a decoration here. So we can say, yeah, it should be here. So for this text, I think I can use a style, and then the style will be basically a text style. Okay, and this text style will have a decoration, and here I can have, if the task is completed, so I can strike through, right? I can say text decoration dot line through, otherwise text decoration dot none. Cool. So what it means is, if the task is completed, in that case I will have this line through, as you can see in this make tutorial. And if it's not done, then in this case we'll have this simple, there will be no line through. Okay, so now we have the functionality of marking the task as done, like creating a new task. And also now I think it's the best time to have a functionality, the delete functionality. So for that, I want to slide this particular tile and delete, right? So for that, I think this is the best time to have a Flutter package, which is very useful for having those sliding features. So let's go and add the Flutter slidable in our pubspec.yaml. So let's go to our dependencies, and here I can use Flutter slidable. And also let's have this version of 1.2.0, and let's save. So using this package, we can have the functionality of slidable. And then let's go to our to do tile, and now our container will be basically a slidable, right? So let me wrap this inside slidable, wrap with widget, and now I can use the slidable. Okay, so now this slidable accepts a child, and also it accepts an action pane, because when I slide this, I want to have a delete icon there. So I can have the end action pane, and here I can pass the action pane. So this will accept a motion. So in the motion, I can say stretch motion. Okay, and then I can have the children. So in the children, I can have a delete button. So basically, let's say the first children will be a slidable action. So this on press will be basically a on delete. So let me accept the delete function. So I can say function build context, let's say delete function, or on delete. Okay, and I can have this on delete here, and also I can accept this here. So I can say required this dot on delete. Okay, so this slidable action will have a children also. So instead of children, I think I can pass the icon. So the icon will be basically the delete icon. Okay, and if I save this and let me refresh the application, let's see if we have anything here. Not yet. Oh, it is not working because like we have this error here in this home page. I need to have the on delete here, on delete. So for now, let's have nothing, and let's save, and let's refresh. So yes, you can see we have this delete, like slidable delete now. So let's style this delete. So I want to have this border radius here. So let's go to my to do tile, and let's have a border here, like let's say border radius. It will be of border radius dot circular, and then I will pass 12. And also let's have a background color of red. So you can say colors dot red. So I can use the shade of 300. Okay, like cool, right? So now let's have the functionality, like when I click on this delete, it should remove this particular to-do, right? So let's go back to our home page, and now we can have a on delete function. So we can say void on delete. So this will basically accept the index. Now here, instead of having this, let's have a callback function. It will have a context. So here I can call the on delete with the index. Okay, and here what I can do, so let's set state, and now our to-dos dot remove at, so we can particularly remove this index. Let's save. Okay, so I think with this we have completed our to-dos. So let's test this application. So when I delete, it's also removing the to-do. Let's create a new to-do. We'll say test to-do. Let's save. Let's mark this as done. Let's remove this. Cool. So this is a basic to-do application using Flutter. Also, we can use a database, local storage database, so that we can persist all these things, but that is not the scope of this tutorial. I think this is it from this tutorial. I hope you were able to learn few things from me. So I hope I was able to help you with it. So see you in the next one, where we'll be having a local storage in this to-do application.